Seemingly out of thin air, two children, a brother and sister, were spotted by people near the village of Woolpit. These children were scared and hungry, apparently lost, and speaking gibberish. But what immediately stood out to the villagers about the kids were their strange appearance. They had green skin. Today we'll be looking at the account of the Green Children of Woolpit. Welcome to Labeled Unknown. In the 12th century Suffolk, a strange account comes to us through the years first written of by two notable chroniclers, William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall. They write an account of two very strange children, a brother and sister, both green of skin and speaking in a very peculiar language, a language not known by anyone in the area. Everything about these children was strange. Even their clothes were made of a strange material. Needless to say, the locals were extremely confused. The locals took the children to the nearby home of Sir Richard, where he offered them food, but the children refused to eat anything given to them, acting off-put by the offerings, even though he could clearly see the children were very hungry. No matter what, the children refused to eat anything. Until after some days' time, the children came across some broad beans in the garden and proceeded to eat them right out of the ground. All this just deepened the strangeness of the two children to the locals. The people started to investigate the origins of the children a little deeper, but came to no clear conclusions. They seemed to just appear suddenly into existence. They were believed to have stayed with Sir Richard for some years, and as time went on, the two children seemed to adjust somewhat to regular food. Eventually, their complexion changed from green to a normal hue. Slowly, they began to adjust to the new land they had found themselves in. Once the children slowly learned English and could speak fluently, they were asked, they said, quote, "We are inhabitants of the land of St. Martin, who is regarded with peculiar veneration in the country which gave us birth. We are ignorant of how we arrived here. We only remember this, that on a certain day, when we were feeding our father's flocks in the fields, we heard a great sound, such as we are now accustomed to hear at St. Edmund's, when the bells are chiming, and whilst listening to the sound in admiration, we became on a sudden, as it were, entranced, and found ourselves among you in the fields where you were reaping. The sun does not rise upon our countrymen, our land is little cheered by its beams. We are contented with that twilight which among you precedes the sunrise or follows the sunset. Moreover, a certain luminous country is seen not far distant from ours and divided from it by a very considerable river." I've also seen accounts of her saying they walked into a cave and followed the sound of a bell to the other side. Sir Richard shortly after took the children to be baptized. Soon after that, the boy would get an unknown illness and pass away. The young woman supposedly grew up and became known as Agnes Barr. She married a man of status named Richard Barr, who was a royal official from King's Lynn. Very remarkable to assimilate so well after such a crazy past. Not much else is written of Agnes' life after this time, but it is assumed she went on to live a relatively normal life in the 12th century. There are a bunch of speculations about the green-skinned brother and sister that just seemingly appeared out of thin air. Some people like to point out an alien connection. Obviously, the green skin would give an alien appearance, but physically, other than the color of their skin, they appeared of normal build. Though at first they couldn't stomach normal food, they eventually adapted. But that raises questions. What had the children grown up eating previously if they turned every normal food away? Could they be alien hybrids? What had been the strange material their clothes were made out of? Could they be from a twilight planet? Some people link the children to the hollow earth theory. Why did the girl say there was no sun where she had come from? There wouldn't be in a hollow earth, at least not a sun like ours. The girl said their land was twilight. Could that be because of some other phosphorescent glow of the interior of the earth? The children went into a cavern and emerged in the villager's land. A tunnel from interior to exterior, maybe? What were the bells the children heard that led them through the cavern? Cows on the other side, perhaps? Other people say it's a lot less supernatural than all of that, and they say the key is in the only food the children would originally eat, the broad beans. There is a condition called hypochromic anemia brought on by malnutrition that causes a pale greenish hue on the people that suffer from it. In the past, sometimes referred to as the green sickness. One of the symptoms is one's appetite being affected, which could explain the children's pickiness of the food they were offered. Some people say the children were likely Flemish immigrants, possibly from a village called Fornham St. Martin. If that is the case, the children would have likely spoken Dutch, which could explain the locals referring to the language as strange and unknown to them. But this doesn't take into account the girl's story of coming from a land of twilight where everyone was green like them, or traveling there through a cave, or the strange material of their clothes, or how they even arrived there. In order to believe a more mundane story, you would have to completely disregard the girl's entire testimony. But what do you think? Could this be a case of alien involvement, or maybe visitors from the interior of the Earth? Or could it all just be a story with a much simpler explanation, like Malnure's kid speaking Dutch? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And until next time, take it easy.